everybody, welcome to a SUPboarder video where we're going to be giving you an overview look at the Aquatone range for 2022. If this is the first SUPboarder video you're watching, well, congratulations, you found us, and if you're into SUP, we are here for you. There's so much content on the YouTube channel and on our SUPboarder mag website. So a little bit about Aquatone. Aquatone are a sister brand to Astron. Astron are double chambered boards. Their price point is up a bit compared to these. These boards are definitely sitting at that lower price point, which is a great way of getting into the sport without spending lots of money. You still get a quality product to get you into maybe different disciplines of SUP without breaking the bank. The way I'm going to split this video up is I'm going to run through each product on the Aquatone range, giving you a highlight about what that board is like to paddle and maybe who should be best looking at that board. Then finishing off at the end of the video, giving you pros and cons about the Aquatone range to help you understand which one is right for you, if any. So starting off with the smallest board in the range, let's look at the Neon first. 9 foot by 28 inches wide, and it's 4.75 inches thick. That's very much labelled up as a kids board or a lighter paddler board. That board was the same last year in 2021. Retails at £299, and that's complete with a package, paddle, leash and pump, so it's a very competitive price. Nice lightweight board at 7 kilos, and definitely if you're a lighter paddler or younger paddler getting into the sport, you're going to be able to do a lot of different types of paddling with that board. Paddlers maximum weights up to about 75 kilos at a max. The real sweet spot for those will be super lightweight, definitely 40 kilos up to about 65 kilos. Then moving up in size from there, we have the two newer boards in the range, the Mist and the Haze. Now the reason these two boards are going to go together in this part of the review is because both these boards are compact, foldable paddle boards, which basically makes you have a much smaller, easier to transport paddle board when it's folded up into the backpack. The size of the board is very similar to other boards in the Aquatone range. 10 foot for the Mist is by 32 inches, or they do the longer Haze, which is 11 foot by 32 inches, both 6 inches thick. And the Mist retails at £399 and the Haze retails at £419. Obviously these boards are bigger in length and width. They're going to be better for all-round paddling. The Haze is slightly longer again, being 11.4 in length, and that's going to be better for the tourer, somebody who wants to paddle that little bit further. The difference between those boards and the other boards you'll find is those are fitted off with a twin fin at the back, which means then when they get folded in half, it's easier to roll the board up and put it into the bag. Because it's a 6-inch thick board, you're still going to get a good amount of rider weight. It's going to take up to a maximum rider weight of about 110, 115 kilos, a real sweet spot weight up to about 90 kilos. The longer Haze is going to be very similar to the smaller Mist. Maybe the sweet spot weight could be up to about 95 kilos. If you're really interested to find out loads more information about those two boards, check out the full SUPboarder review where Will and Harry walked up a small mountain in Wales and paddled on a lake just to show how compact and transportable those smaller boards were. Moving up in the range, you have the Wave range of paddleboards. Now, most of you are looking at this range of paddleboards to get into the sport. The smallest Wave is 10 foot by 32 inches and 6 inches thick. Then you have the 10.6 by 32 at 6 inches thick. Then you have the 11 foot by 32 at 6 inches thick. And you have another Wave Plus, but this is a 12 foot version, and this is 34 inches wide at 6 inches thick. The retail prices are still very competitive there at £349 for the 10 foot. The 10.6 is £379, the 11 foot is £399, and the big 12 foot is £425. 10 foot is going to be very similar to the Mist board, probably up to about 90 kilos, maximum recommended, yeah, about 110. The Wave 10.6, a really popular size. Maximum rider weight up to about 120 kilos, real sweet spot of rider, 70 to 95 kilos. The 11 foot, similar again to the Wave 10.6, a little bit more, 125 kilos max weight. Ideal sweet spot, 75 to 95 kilos. And the 12.6 Wave Plus, because last year they had that Wave Plus at 12 foot, but it was still 32 inches wide. Because it's got extra width there, it's definitely going to take a higher maximum weight. 150, 160 kilos, the sweet spot there. It's definitely going to be comfortable for people to paddle it up to about 125 kilos because of that extra width. Then we're definitely moving up in the range because we're looking at the more touring, cruising based boards. So these are the longer boards. We're looking at the Flame, we're looking at the 11.4 and the 12.6. Both 32 inches wide, so similar width to the other boards, but that much longer, slightly more pointed nose. It's going to offer you that much more glide, more performance if you want to paddle further and faster, more for the touring, cruising, sports paddler. And also the constructions of these boards change compared to the Wave and the compact range, but we'll speak about constructions after I've given you this overview. The price points for these, the 11.4 is £479 and the 12.6 is £499, so still very competitive. And again, this is still a complete package: paddle, leash, pump, backpack, everything to get you on the water. Maximum rider weight for these two, both going to be sitting around 130 kilos. Sweet spot weight, definitely 70 to 95 kilos for both of those boards. And those boards also have had a graphic update for 2022. We actually put those boards into our SUPboarder Pro touring test last year, and actually the 12.6 did actually come up pretty well against some of the way more expensive boards on the market. So if you want to find out more about that board and the touring side of it, definitely sign up to SUPboarder Pro and watch the full SUPboarder touring test. Next up we have the Ocean board. Now this is a completely new shape, design and everything compared to last year's board. There was an Ocean in last year's range, and that was a 14-foot board as well, but that was a 27-inch wide board. This one is only 23 inches wide, which is, I think, the narrowest iSUP that we have ever reviewed on SUPboarder. So that board, if you want to paddle fast, you want to paddle far, and you want to have very little effort when you're paddling, that board is going to be the fastest board in the range. It's not going to give you that stability because it is not a wide board at 23 inches wide. Max rider rate, because of the width there, is definitely going to only be 80 kilos at the most, and sweet spot of rider rate probably going to be 50 to 70 kilos. But if you want to paddle fast, getting rid of the width is going to get you paddling much quicker. Now, looking at the more multi-person boards, the first off is a tandem board that we've actually reviewed a few years ago as well, and that one is called the Jungle. That one's 13 foot long, 34 inches wide, 6 inches thick, and that retails at £699, complete with a package. But if you want the ultimate family or friend fun, you're going to be looking at the Jungle Mega, which is a 16-foot board, a massive 56 inches wide, 8 inches thick, and that retails as a complete package with all the paddles and pumps and everything to go with it, £799. The Jungle, it's a little bit of a special one. You could paddle it on your own. If you would be paddling it on your own, you can obviously take a lot of weight in it. Maximum weight, 160 kilos. Sweet spot on your own, probably no less than 110 kilos up to about 130 kilos. And the Mega Jungle, well, really depends how big your family is or how many friends you want to get on that board. You could get up to about 6 people on that board quite comfortably. So apart from the dimensions and the outline shapes of the boards, what else is different between the certain boards, and why are they different price points? Well, that really comes down to the construction of the boards. The cheaper price point boards are all single layer boards with a stringer technology. So basically they have a stringer, an extra PVC layer that's stuck on to the top and bottom of the board to give it a bit more stiffness. The more material you have on your inflatable paddleboard, the stiffer the paddleboard is going to be, and also the tougher it's going to be as well. So the Flames and the Ocean boards are double layer fusion boards. They're much lighter because of that, and they are going to give you a stiffer overall paddling experience. The Wave and the Mist boards, they are a lighter base construction, as in the amount of layers that are going into the board, and also these layers are glued together opposed to heated together like the two Ocean and Flame boards, which is why they are lighter. To give you a good idea and understanding of how much stiffer certain boards are compared to their constructions, we put every board we have on SUPboarder through our deflection test, which is where we put it on a gap of 1.5 meters apart, and we put a weight of 75 kilograms on the center of the board, and then we just measure how much the board bends from its resting state with the weight on the board. And it gives you a really good idea and a gauge how the boards compete to other boards on the market. At a recommended PSI pressure of 15 PSI, it dropped 14 millimeters, which to be fair is still a fairly stiff board in the current market. Some of the most flexible boards on the market are dropping at about 20, and some of the stiffest inflatable paddleboards we've ever tested have dropped 7 millimeters. So it's nicely in the middle, if not towards the stiffer end of the spectrum. If we move on and do the deflection test at the same PSI, 15 PSI, with the flame range, which is the double layer construction, fusion technology, that only dropped 12 millimeters. So it's stiffer again at the same PSI pressure. So the extra material that's on that board is giving you that stiffer feel. And then looking at the Ocean, which is the same construction as the Flame, but it has a recommended max pressure of 18 PSI. If you pump it up to 18 PSI, you're going to get a little bit more stiffness, because that only dropped 11 millimeters when we deflection tested it. So what's the difference between stiffness when you're paddling on the water? I mean, after all, you can paddle on some pretty bendy boards. I've seen some people paddling on some very bendy boards out there with their feet wet in the middle of the board, and they're still having fun and they're still enjoying themselves, but you do get a much more stable feel when you're paddling a stiffer base board, because if you aren't wobbling around so much, or the board's not wobbling around so much and moving in the water up and down, it's going to give you that more stable feel. But the big thing as well is when you put your paddle stroke in, you're going to put a lot of energy into your paddle, into your body, into your feet, and then into the board. And if you've got a big bendy board, it's going to bend and it's going to deflect in the water. And it's going to basically make the board not very fast or efficient to paddle. So the stiffer the board, the faster you're going to paddle for the less effort, and the easier it's going to be to paddleboard. So if you want to get onto your paddleboard for once a year and just have fun playing around with the family, you can do it with a super bendy board. But if you get a stiffer base board, you are going to enjoy it more, and you're probably going to progress into more paddleboarding disciplines. So now let's have a look at the package you get with all of these boards. Okay, so you all get packages as standard. First off, let's start off with the pump. These pumps are the same pumps that came with last year's packages. These are two-way pumps, which means they pump on the upstroke and on the downstroke, so they can get a large amount of air quickly into your board. And then when the pumping gets hard, as in you can't pull the handle up when the pressure's getting higher, you can take this red nozzle out the back and that just pumps on the downstroke. These pumps are perfectly adequate for these boards. They're not the best pumps on the market, but also for the price point, it's what you'd expect. They're definitely not the worst pumps on the market at all. They're going to easily get that pressure into your boards. You're easily getting it 15 or 18 PSI into these boards. And they also have an inflate and a deflate setting, which is great. Now having a look at the paddle that comes as standard with all these boards, aluminium shaft and a nylon plastic blade. Good combination for when you first start off, because that nylon plastic blade's super strong. It's got a little bit of a bend to it, so you can afford to bash it on the rocks and not really look after it. It's a three-piece paddle that pushes together with a push-pin attachment here. Very easy to put together, like a lever system here. Lock it tight, and that locks the paddle off. You will need to tighten up the screws when you first get them, because they will tend to bend until you tighten these two screws up to make the lock properly work. Aluminium paddles are great getting you on the water first time. They are the sort of thing you would upgrade, because eventually you're going to find the aluminium paddles will bend, and maybe they might even stay bent if you're pretty heavy on your paddles. But Aquatone have got a great range of other paddles on the market. If you move on to glass fiber, fiberglass, and then eventually even carbon, you're going to get a much better paddling experience. The paddle's going to be stiffer, it's going to be lighter, you're going to be able to put more power into your paddle and push yourself along quicker. But this is a very simple, easy shaped paddle. It's comfortable in the water. It's not super performance, but then it's perfectly adequate with these boards. They all come with nice, simple coiled leashes as standard. Like I said in last year's video, all this stuff is all branded up with Aquatone, which is really nice to see, considering some other cheaper price point boards of this price point don't come with nice accessories like this. Leashes are really important to use, but please be aware about where and when you should be using the correct leash attachment. What we mean by that is if you're paddling in fast river or even tidal movement waters, you're going to make sure you want to have this part of your leash, which is attached to usually to your ankle. You want to make sure that's attached to a quick release onto your waist. So if you need to get rid of your board, if it gets entangled with some stuff on the riverbank or a buoy or something floating on the water, you can get rid of your board, and then you're going to have to swim after it or swim in, but it's better than being entangled and tied to that fixed object. We're going to have loads more videos coming out very soon about all that sort of stuff, but definitely worth a read up on the right type of leash attachment. The bags you get with all the Aquatone boards are very simple, very lightweight, not much padding going on. You've got a small amount of padding on the shoulder straps. You still have got a chest buckle, and you've still got compression straps that you can tighten the bag up. It's got drainage holes down the side. It's just a good bag to carry your board to and from the beach, putting it in the back of the car. You're not going to be doing any big treks, but if you did want to do that, you probably could upgrade the bag, or you could put some padding down the bag to get it a little bit more comfortable. But again, it's the sort of thing we'd expect at this price point of boards. Giving you a rundown of some of the features that are on these boards. All these boards are supplied with the same fin box, which is the newer sort of click lock fin box. We really like this fin box. It's quite a solid, secure fin box. Aquatone had them on their boards last year. You are going to make sure you have to keep that fin box sort of clean in the sand, but it's not too bad if you get most of the sand out. The fins themselves are a very basic shape, but they're nice and stiff, so they're going to give you a fair amount of straight line tracking. Lots of the boards have now got extra D-rings on the center here, which take the kayak seat attachments, which you can buy as an optional extra. So if you want to convert your board into more of an all-round sort of water sports weapon, putting a kayak seat on the front and getting an extra paddle that you can clip on there is going to give you that option. They've all got padded neoprene carry handles, nice big deck pads, the wave range especially, really nice with the graphics going through the deck pad. The more performance boards like the Flame and the Ocean have got kick pads at the tail, which is a raised EVA tail pad, which is if you're walking around the board doing step back turns, you can have a really good reference of where your back foot is. Quite a few changes on the new Ocean board with extra handles in this offset position. If you're wondering what they're for, it's for doing racing and doing running up and down the beach where you can carry your board out and get it into the water quickly. This new Ocean board is quite an interesting board because it's very, very narrow at 23 inches wide. Because it's so narrow, they've actually given you an extended deck pad out to the side, so a little raised EVA sides there, which you do use when you're paddling this super narrow board. Small bungee area, and at the back of this board underneath you'll see that there's a rail edge, which is where the water can release off the back of the tail, making the board much faster and more efficient to paddle. Now before we move on to the pros and cons and give you a summary of the Aquatone boards, there's a few more things that you might want to see in the Aquatone range that might interest you. One of them, which is really quite quirky, is the air chair, and that's an inflatable chair that can go on your big SUP or your floating platform. Retails at £299, but if you've got a spare bit of money, it is quite a neat product, and we have been bounce testing it while we were doing our deflection test, and we will be using it throughout the summer, definitely for sure. Another interesting product which we are reviewing from a lot more brands lately is these new SUP kayak board boats things. Ones you can sit in and stand on. This new concept which is involving this same drop stitch material which is in these boards, putting them into these sort of sit on in kayaks. Will's done a few interesting videos on those already. If you are really looking towards that more multi-sport board, that is actually a very interesting product because you are sitting more in it and you're lower than you are if you're going to be sitting on top of these paddle boards. But you have got to climb back in that if you do fall out. I think that's got a lot of future that in the sport, especially for SUP, for storage, for holding stuff. Aquatone do have a cheaper price point there at £599, complete package, pump, bag, paddle, kayak paddle as well. It comes with a center fin and a back fin for the extra stability and straight line tracking if you're paddling it as a kayak. They've got the blasts, which are definitely more like kayaks than this sort of SUP kayak crossover, and that's a 1-person and 2-person one. And if you're looking to get something to give you a bit more water confidence, Aquatone actually do something called an air belt, which is a simple belt that you wear around your waist. You can inflate that you can lie on. So obviously it's not a life jacket, it's not a buoyancy aid, but it's that middle ground between the two. So other stuff to think about, you get a 1-year warranty with all these products. As far as the environmental awareness of Aquatone, They are trying to definitely do stuff in the future. Unfortunately, the packaging and the way that the boards are packed up, still packed up with a lot of plastic, which needs to change. Aquatone have been speaking to us. They are saying they are going to change that in the future. So it's still a negative from us. They're widely available in lots of shops all around the world, so maybe you could even try one of these before you buy one. As far as any problems or warranty issues, you're going to be able to sort that out easily because you are going to be able to go back to a shop. Cons or things to be aware of with these boards: the build quality of these boards is absolutely fine. They are stuck together well. There's no flaking or rolling up edges. I would say that the finish or the final finishing detail is acceptable at the price, but it's not as high as more expensive boards in the market, which, as I've said in other videos, it's what you're going to expect at that cheaper price point. So you might find the odd mark on this board, or you might find the extra bit of glue around the edge. Just small stuff that you wouldn't see with boards that are twice, 3 times the price. One thing I brought up in last year's video is when you come to deflate these boards and pack them up, because the valves are in the middle of the board, you're not going to be able to get all the air out of it. So what I mean by that is a lot of boards, they have an inflation port at the front or at the back. So when you roll your board up, you can roll it from front to back and roll all the air out. When you put a valve in the middle of the board, it aesthetically looks nice, but you get stuck with air at either end of the board. So you are going to have to put your hose on your pump on your deflate sort of screw thread and suck the remaining air out of the board. Not a massive problem, but it will take a bit longer when you deflate the board. Another negative, it's a shame that the Ocean is 23 inches wide, because this is a narrow board. I understand it's designed for people who want to paddle fast, and no doubt if you're a lighter paddler, you are still going to really enjoy this board. But definitely changing it from 27 inches wide last year to 23 inches wide this year, I think unfortunately is going to make a lot of people unable to use it. Also, that board's got a little too much nose rocker at the front of the board to really make it efficient, and potentially the tail runner at the back of the board is not put on in exactly the right place or angle to make the board as efficient as possible. But we haven't done any full tests into this. This is just our thoughts. But the good things about the Aquatone range this year, I think the look of the boards is really, really good. Potentially some of the best looking iSUPs on the market. The Wave range is fantastic, and the Wave Plus in the 12 foot, now going to 34 inches wide, is a really, really good move. The price points for these boards is very competitive. You do get a lot of board for your money, and there's no doubt a lot of you are going to be buying these boards again this year. There's a good size range of boards this year, not too many to baffle you to understand, to work out which board you're after, but most of you are going to find a board in that range that will suit you. And we do like the added things on the Ocean, the new handles, to make it go that little bit faster. Hope you found this SUPboard review interesting and informative, and it's helped you understand if one of these boards or one of these products is right for you in 2022. Remember, check out the last year's video if you want to find a bit more information about boards, because a lot of it will translate into this year's range as well. Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check out our main website on SUPboardermag.com. And if you're mad keen on SUP, learning to wing, getting into foiling, definitely subscribe to SUPboarder Pro. Thank you very much, and we'll see you on another video real soon.